After failing his classes and being unable to go to any regular high schools, Skune gets into Yokai Academy by luck. Little does he know, Yokai Academy is a school for monsters who want to learn how to coexist with humans with a very strict no-human policy. On his first day, he is able to meet Mocha, who he soon learns is a vampire. In this series, he meets more monster girls, building up his harem with girls like Kurumu, Yukari, Mizore, and Ruby. With his mission of living a normal life at this monster academy as a human, he stumbles into many altercations and love quarrels along the way.
Story.
I found the story overall meh. It was alright. It was easy to follow and kept you intrigued, but it had a lot of continuity errors as long as just questions like, how is this even allowed in the school? And some of it made no sense. But overall, I didn't mind the season 1 story.
I really liked the concept of Rosario Vampire, but I feel like the execution was lacking. I'll give it some slack for coming out in 2008, but I still feel like this anime has not aged well at all over the years. And I feel like the pacing was pretty good and nothing really dragged out too long. But I agree with Monk, there are a lot of continuity errors, especially with Mocha and Water. And there's many more, but that's the prime example I can think of right now.
I have a much more lukewarm opinion on the story aspect because since this is more slice of life, I didn't feel like there was a solid through line, like especially compared to the series that we've done so far. And personally, I would have liked it more if they went more into the specifics about the different monster types, because we only really got that with Ruby. Whereas with Mizore or Kurumu, we just fought them. It's like, oh, you're a succubus. Oh, you're an ice thing.
Snow woman.
Snow woman. And then they fight, and then their species is never really talked about again. And the final story arc, I do actually have to give it props because, especially compared to the other series we reviewed so far, this didn't feel like it was as out of nowhere. Like the premise for the story that they covered in the last couple episodes made sense because it's the thing that Skune was dealing with the entire series. But in the end, I feel like it didn't really do much for me as a finale to the season. I honestly felt more invested with the Ruby story arc than the final showdown with the Kitsune.
Fanservice.
There's plenty of panty shots here. Mocha's skirt, I swear, never fully covers her. Try to prove me wrong, but I'm 9,000% sure her skirt is always up and you can see her panties. There's a lot of cleavage as well. It's all fine and good until we get to Yukari, who's literally 11 years old. She's sexualized a lot and it's absolutely disgusting. I guess I'm glad that Skune doesn't really sexualize her, but there's so many of these other side characters that come along. It's like, flat is justice, and it's like, she's a child, please stop. Yeah, I didn't really mind the fan service. It was okay.
I personally wouldn't say that I love the fan service in this because compared to other shows that we've had in the year since this came out, this is very basic. With, like Joel said, it's just a bunch of panty shots, a bunch of cleavage, and it's just kind of thrown in there. I don't necessarily know how to describe how I would have wanted it different, but it's just kind of like the characters are talking, oh, the camera's a little low so you can see the panties, and that's really all it amounts to for the most part. So fan service is not amazing for this.
So yeah, there's a lot of panty shots. A good amount of them didn't make sense because they could just be standing there and just see full-on panties. And it's like, okay. And it's not even like looking up, it's just showing. And there's occasional nipple, which was a little weird, but I didn't mind. But I agree with Joel. I was very uncomfortable when they sexualized Yukari in any way, since, like she said, she is a child, and it felt disgusting.
Characters.
I feel like the characters are pretty basic in this season. I didn't hate them, but as I said before, I would have liked it if they went more in depth with like the monster types or the history that these characters had, because they all seem to have some sort of disdain towards humans, but it's not really expanded on outside of Mocha. And I mentioned Ruby's treatment for this before and how she got a little bit more development in this aspect, but it still wasn't as interesting as I would have hoped it to be. Yeah, I just wish that the characters besides Mocha got more of the development that Mocha did get. And there are things such as the weakness that Jules mentioned earlier, where as far as I can remember, Mocha is the only one who had a weakness highlighted, and the characters don't really get much development, I found, outside of the first episode that they show up in, because they just have that little bit of exposition and then they're just supporting character after that point.
I agree with Jason. The characters weren't really developed in this season, and it kind of sucks because I haven't mentioned it yet, but I'm a big fan of the manga. I read the whole thing and I love it. And they develop so much in it, and it's amazing. But then you get back to the anime and it's like, ugh, this sucks a lot. I'm hoping whenever we get to season 2, they'll develop more, but I genuinely don't remember. But yeah, the characters besides Mocha, as he said, weren't really developed. Ruby had a bit of a story, but it was confusing as well because of continuity, how a good amount of it was messed up in it. And yeah, especially Mizore, like, she came in late, and then they barely used her a lot, unless she just popped up out of nowhere or she was in a fight, which really sucked.
I like that each girl was a different monster, except Ruby and Yukari. It's nice to see some variety. Neither of y'all have talked about Skune, but I'm gonna say this. Skune downright annoyed me the entire time. Especially when he throws himself into danger, damn well knowing he can't do anything. In the early episodes, he's like, oh, I'm the man here, I gotta save them. And it's just like, oh, I know it's 2008, but like, I hate it here. Just let Mocha do everything for you. Let the girls solve the problems. And he's like, no, I need to help. And it's like, just stop. I liked all the girls, they were fine, but obviously other Mocha is far superior to Mocha. Regular Mocha's kind of annoying along with Skune.
Entertainment value.
So the entertainment, it didn't age well, as mentioned in another category before. It got very old very fast and very annoying. Maybe back then it was really funny to have the Skune, Mocha, them saying that a million times, gag funny, and like her biting his neck and the bat. Maybe that was funny back then, but now it just makes you groan just hearing it happen for the 7th time in the series. I really only laughed at situations that weren't really supposed to be laughed at because these are bad animation, bad line delivery, or just general stupid actions of what the characters do. So yeah.
I'd say we all had a good laugh watching it. Granted, it wasn't for the intended reasons, but that's still a plus. Like we've all mentioned, it hasn't aged well at all, but it's not unwatchable. And we haven't brought this up yet, but I'm gonna bring it up now.
God.
Why do we have random music numbers? Get them out of here. They were some of the worst parts. Just out of nowhere, like, they would just start singing. Or there would just be a whole ass choreographed music number. And the singing contest in the swimming episode, it's just like, is this needed? Did anyone ask for this? Did the situation arise to this? No. It has some good moments sprinkled between Skune and Mocha's stupidity. And at least Skune clearly has his sights set on Mocha and he's not wavering between the girls like some harems. So good on Skune for that one.
So they pretty much covered a chunk of my notes for this section. But I gotta say personally that even with the ironic comedy aspect, with laughing at how poorly it aged, the line delivery and all that, it still really wasn't able to keep my attention, especially towards the end this time around. And I'm obviously the action guy at this point. I gotta bring it up at every review now. It tried for a bit of an action angle, and I feel like it just kind of started getting in the way, because the actions aren't spectacular, and I don't feel like they're really went for that. They weren't really trying for it to be a super action oriented series, but that becomes an annoyance when every single episode ends with a fight scene that is just boring.
Best girl.
Now, I love other Mocha a lot, but as far as the main girls go, my best girl is Kurumu. She's a fellow big booby struggler, and I feel her mood sometimes. She's a succubus, which is one of my favorite types of monsters, and she's definitely really beautiful and funny. And when there was the stupid musical numbers, her voice wasn't bad. And I really like her rivalry with Yukari, even though it sometimes gets uncomfortable, but I still like the little rivalry that they have. Overall, she's a lovely person, and you cannot tell me otherwise.
My best girl is the real Mocha. I'm sure you could tell by now my type of waifu is a strong woman that could easily kick my ass.
Me too.
Mocha Mocha is absolutely gorgeous in this form, in her true form, and hits key points that I love in anime women. The long silver hair, the red eyes are absolutely perfect. She's tough as shit, but when in those moments where you see her softer side, it's just amazing. My waifu used to be Mizore, but her dub voice really didn't do it for me this time around. She's cute and everything, but I guess overall my tastes have changed because I find true Mocha to be more attractive this time as well. And obviously, I've mentioned it before, Mocha being the main character, she gets a lot more development than Mizore, which gives me more things in her personality to attach to.
My number one has always been and will always be Mizore. I love her so much. I don't care about her voice because I care about her sub voice. It's amazing. She's beautiful. I love her personality. I love how she rolls. I love how she could beat my ass in 2 seconds. She's just great. I love her, and I always will.
Final score.
I give this season of Rosario Vampire a 4. This was actually the second ecchi I ever watched, and I kind of knew what to expect going into this watch through, but I don't feel like that affected my score that much, if at all. This series, as we've hammered in throughout this review, it just didn't age well, and overall, it kind of came off as bland to me. And the fan service wasn't great, as I also mentioned before. The action elements drug it down even more. And the slice of life aspect wasn't really that good in my opinion either. If you want some Monster Girl series that do what this series tried to do much better, I'd suggest Interviews with Monster Girls, or if you want more ecchi oriented, you could go for Monster Musume, but this series is kind of mediocre.
I also give it a 4 out of 10 because it's not completely terrible. I'm okay with the story. It maybe laughs occasionally, but the animation wasn't that good. Line deliveries wasn't that good. It didn't do it for me as the manga does. It's just not that great, and I know season 2 is going to be worse, so that's exciting. But yeah, it's a 4 out of 10 for me.
I give Rosario Vampire Season 1 a 5 out of 10. I was wavering between a 4 and a 5 throughout the show, but I settled on a middle-of-the-road score. It's not terrible, but it's far from being an amazing anime. If Skune wasn't an annoying protag and Yukari wasn't a literal child, I feel like this anime would have been a lot better. And I know this anime is beloved by a lot of people, but I really think that's the nostalgia glasses talking. It's a fun experience to watch with friends, and I would definitely not recommend watching this by yourself. But if you're bored and you have a couple friends to watch it with, sure, go right ahead if you're looking for a dumb laugh and if you're into Monster Girls, but otherwise I'd say skip it. It's not worth it.
That brings our final score to a 4 out of 10. Decent experience, but not something that you should really rush to in this current day and age.
Go watch interviews with Monster Girls. It's 70,000 times better. Or if you're degenerate like us, Monster Musume.
We'll get to it eventually.
We will. We will.
And that is going to do it for our review of Rosario Vampire Season 1. As always, let us know what you think of Rosario Vampire as well as this review in the comment section below. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more Oppai Hunters content.